Hello, well, you joined me here today. Have to remove the gauge cluster out of this car. We're going to do that for a couple of reasons. One, because some of the functions on here are not working, like the tachometer for sure is not working. I'm not getting any blinkers, but that could be a light issue. But we're also going to go through and replace a whole bunch of these glass bulb lights in this guy with LEDs, and then all the lights in here should be pretty bright. But to do so, we need to remove the cluster first, and doing that is actually pretty easy. First, we do need to remove this lower panel that's underneath the steering wheel. Just this guy here. This panel fits in like so. And then the only deal with this guy is that there's two screws on the bottom. They're usually just Phillips head, but sometimes they'll be like this. I guess you could call this a combination head screw, where it's Phillips and like either 7mm or 1/4 inch. Remove two of those. That panel slides down, pull, and then you can pull it away. Once you've done that, now you can get up inside. And it's, I'm struggling to get the camera up in there, but you can see there's a little cutout here. And then there's a longer cutout here. Those do two things. One, that's where the little clamps go on that panel that we just removed. But that's also where these two little screws go. They go right up inside those holes, and they hold in this cluster bezel. So you remove those two. They're exactly these. I had just removed these for your viewing pleasure. You can see that they're Phillips head, and I believe they're either 7mm or 1/4 inch. Either way, it doesn't matter too much. And then you got a Phillips screw here, and now you can gently take this, slide it out a little bit, and gently pick on up, and that's going to be out of the way for us today. Now you can see the entire cluster assembly. Getting into this guy is pretty easy now. To remove this, we simply have to remove that bottom of the screw of the two you see there. That most far right one out of those three. The most left one out of those three. And then that bottom left one. So it's pretty much anywhere you see these white tabs, that's where we got to remove some screws. So I'll do that real quick, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've removed all four of those screws. They were 1/4 inch size. So now the cluster is just about ready to come out. The last thing we have to do before we do that, however, is notice how the speedometer is on the right? Well, directly coming directly out of the back of that speedometer is the speedometer cable. And that guy is this yellow cable. In some cars they're orange, and this one is yellow. I don't know if that's because they fade or not or whatever, but anywho, you have to loosen up that ball that's down there at the bottom, or I should say that nut that clamps this cable to the transmission. Simply reach down there with an adjustable wrench, lefty-loosey. Now you can pull it out. And then I'm going to push this back into the hole just a little bit, and then try to keep the cable kind of straight, because the more straight it is, the easier it is to push this or pull this cluster on out with the cable attached. So you can see me pushing in the cable, it's actually brought the cluster out, because there's not much holding this in here now. One thing I should mention is that we are tethered to the ribbon cable on the back, and that can be a bear. Let me set down the camera, and then we'll come back and I'll illustrate it. Okay, there we go. Kind of forget how much a chore it can be getting that connector on the left out. It's pretty much the same one as what's down in the lower console for EXPs and Escorts that have it. But yeah, geez, they can be quite the turd. 'Cause they don't give you much rope, so you can only come out so far. So you're forced to turn the gauge cluster just so you can get to one side. And you getting out one side, it prevents you from getting the other side out. So you have to pinch them both at the same time, work it out, and it can be quite the chore. You'll know when you attempt your job getting this guy out can be quite the terror. But we got it out, so we'll go and clean all these connectors. I scrubbed some of them, and they're all looking pretty good, honestly. And then I also went, and it's something you should do too, is while you're here, just remove every single component, clean the contacts, both on the copper strips and on the hardware. You know, clean all those surfaces before you and then reassemble all of that before you put this whole assembly back in your car, so that it helps ensure that all these work. And then I should mention that to remove the speedometer from the speedometer cable from the speedometer gauge itself, all you have to do is simply do this. You can see that there's a little tab there on the right, and when you push the opposite side from it, it disappears out of this metal sleeve, and now you're able to slide this out of here. That little plastic tab, it locks in this channel. So as long as you can peel that away, it'll just go wing. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yeah, so cluster's out. Now we'll go and replace some bulbs. Geez. Well, something for you guys to keep in mind is if you are going to put different bulbs in here, don't put the brightest ones where your idiot lights go. That would be your blinkers, your high beams, seat belts, etc., oil pressure, whatever is inside this top row of info. You don't want your bright bulbs there. If you want your bright bulbs to be anywhere, it should only be in the back lightings of these gauges, and we'll show you where those are. So as far as backlight goes, there should be one here, and you can tell because when you look in it, it'll be either a blue or teal little rubber cap. So when light shines through it, it becomes that teal or blue, depending on your car. There is another in this corner. And then there is also one here and here. Those are the only luminescent backlights to this gauge cluster. This entire top row, they're all your warning lights. The outermost two are your turn signals and your hazards. Then working our way around, I should flip this over so you can see it. So right to left, you can see that this one is a oil pressure indicator. That's what that one is. You can kind of see an oil can in there. Remove this one, and this one is a parking brake light. This one is for the lift gate. This one here is for the battery. This one here for high beams. Good one. And this last one should be for your seat belts, and yep, it is. And then your other turn signal. Now when you're converting these to LEDs, what was I going to say? Oh, okay. LEDs are polarity sensitive, so like these guys, you can pull them out, pop them out, put them back in 180. It's not a problem whatsoever with normal glass bulbs. With LEDs, they'll only work one way, and they won't pass current the other way. So if you put them in and around, they're not going to light up. So try to go through with a multimeter, and then figure out which side's positive and negative on each of your LEDs. And then when you put these in, just make it so that the negative is ground. And you can tell what's ground in all of these because it's going to be the contact strip that's shared between all of the lights. So here you can see it's this. It's the right strip of each of these three, and over here you can see that instead it's actually the left strip of each of these. That's your shared ground. Do that and you won't goof it up. As far as these other ones go, you'll have to follow the traces or take a meter to them, because like I said, we know which ones are ground over here. So if you ground that out, you should be able to figure out which one of these are ground. And these can vary some between cars and model years. They ran a bunch of different types of gauges, and this is kind of just a cover-all for the majority of them. You know, EXPs, LN7s, they kind of only had the one gauge really. They've had different colors to them, but all the functionality has been pretty much exactly the same between all these. But all the Escort ones vary a lot. Some of them don't even have a tachometer, for instance. But yeah, that's really all there is to it. And then reinstalling it, try to use dielectric grease on that connector. It'll help keep things from oxidizing. If you want to lube your cable, it's a good time to do that. Otherwise, you just reassemble like normal, and if all is well, everything should light up for you. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll let you guys go. See you soon.